Okay. Thank you. Hello, neighbors. Welcome to the 2022 Meet the Candidates Forum, presented by the Neighborhood Association President's Council, the NAPC. This is you and your neighbors for the city of Lake Worth. We host this every election to educate our neighbors on who's running for office. We had lots of questions over the last few weeks that came in. We've kind of whittled that down to our top categories, and this is what we're going to enjoy tonight. Before we get started, I wanted to give special thanks to the Lake Worth Playhouse. This is the coolest venue that we have in Palm Beach County, and we're really blessed to be here tonight. Normally, in the middle of this event at this venue, we would be passing the hat, the NAPC, the Neighborhood Association President's Council. We are actually paying for the Playhouse tonight, and we're also thanking and paying Bruce Jager and his film crew. Thank you, Bruce. The Lake Worth Herald, always a blessed individual that helps us out with this each year. Thank you, Lake Worth Herald. And then the NAPC Candidate Forum Committee and Volunteers, Ryan Oblander, Sam Goodstein, Mimi May, Marshall Pass, Sylvia Rotella, and John Faust. Thank you all. Thank you all. There's a lot of moving parts behind this to get these people on stage tonight. The rest of this is, this is our neighborhoods. This is you and me and the people that live next door putting this on. Make sure you check out where your neighborhoods meet each month and see what's going on and see how you can help us get started. Before I officially pass this off to our moderator, John Paxman, upcoming events. We have the Street Painting Festival this year, February 26th and 27th. The night before that starts, on the 25th, we have the Great Taste of Lake Worth Beach. Tickets are on sale now. This is come tour all the restaurants in downtown. And for more information on that, look at lwnapc.com. And otherwise, let's get started. Please welcome John Paxman.
All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate the introduction and the going through some of the things there. Before we start, I'd just give you a little bit, those of you who don't know me, a little bit about myself. I was involved a long time ago in the College Park Neighborhood Association and with the NAPC that's putting on this debate today. I was also on the P&Z board and the chair of the P&Z board for quite some time. And until very recently, I was on the CRA. I was the commissioner for the CRA, and I resigned last spring to give somebody else a chance to be in there for that. But you don't want to really hear about me. Okay, I'm going to go through some of the rules, and it helps candidates if you listen. I know it's hard. You got thinking about all kinds of stuff that's going on out here. It's going to happen. But all the candidates received a copy of the rules beforehand and signed off that they did for this. We're going to begin, once we get to it, with opening statements from each candidate. And then there will be a question and answer period with a 10-minute break in the middle, followed by closing statements. Each time allotted for opening and closing statements is limited to 3 minutes each or less. Each candidate will have a timekeeper. We have one solitary timekeeper who will be positioned in the front row with signs visible to the candidates showing how much time is left to answer each question. They will give you a sign at 1 minute, at 30 seconds, and at 15 seconds, and stop. And so we appreciate it if you would wrap it up before we get to, or when we get to stop, or before we get to stop, so you can finish off your answer. It'd be very helpful for the people who are watching, and it'll be very helpful, I think, for all of you. Questions may be formatted as yes or no, or may allow for timed responses and rebuttals. Timed responses may vary from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. Now, you all have rebuttal signs that are propped up behind you or next to you, and you're allowed one rebuttal for the first half of questions, and you're allowed one for the second half. So only one each time, so use them wisely. All questions will be asked of all candidates, no singling anybody out. So, do we have any questions of me? All I'm trying to do here is read questions and keep the order kind of so you never have to answer first all the time or last all the time. We ready?
Ready?
Ready? All right. The first thing we have is the opening statements. And each candidate will have the ability to have 3 minutes with which to make their opening statement. And we're going to start with you, Ronaldo, and we're going to move down the line. And then we are going to reverse course for the other questions.
All right. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Ryan and NAPC and everyone involved for holding this event. Born and raised in Lake Worth, we've often come into this theater, this playhouse. Very rarely do I stand on a stage because it's usually not my MO, but I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy to be here to represent a community in Lake Worth Beach, or bring a representation that's sorely needed. Lake Worth Beach is at an important crossroads. Like I said, I was born and raised here, and I've never seen this kind of opportunity that this community faces, and that important decisions are being made that are going to shape our community, Lake Worth Beach, for years to come. Good or bad, there's going to be huge repercussions, and it's really important to have a qualified commissioner to speak up for particular facets of education and experience that I can bring to the table. I'll discuss in a second. But it's really important to bring a teamwork, an extra voice to our current commission, who I think have been doing such a great job on various topics throughout the city. But something is missing. We have definitely a business interest represented. We have a scientist. We have a family law person. We have the ever-important teacher, but something is really needed for our community, and that is somebody who has the education and the experience to address growth management issues, and of course our top priority right now, which is affordable housing and local economy. And I come to you as a candidate, not necessarily by choice, but as an obligation to my hometown, because I have the long education with the law degree that specializes in land use and Florida constitutional law, local government. These are the things that I chose to study because I wanted to be an advocate for our community, especially our environment at large, which is mostly what I'm known for. With that, I bring an extensive experience of keeping developers honest in court. I bring experience of having no fear in doing that. I've brought both the Trump administration and the Biden administration in court, challenging rule changes. I'm even a source of information for our current commissioners. Other priority issues like crime, local economy, and of course development, these are all issues that can be addressed with smart growth management law. So I am the candidate with the specific education and experience that's going to address these issues on behalf of our community and build a Lake Worth Beach that's going to be resilient, equitable, and accepting for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Craig Frost.
Hello, my name is Craig Frost. I'm running for District 4 City Commissioner. I would like to thank the NAPC as well as Lake Worth Playhouse for hosting this event. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 55 years old, married to my beautiful wife, Ashley, and have two children, my son, Cameron, and my daughter, Ellie. I'm proud to have raised them in the city that I call home. We also have our dog, Lily, and at current count, 14 feral cats, all spayed and neutered. And of course, a little free library in my front yard. I'm a lifelong resident, born and raised Lake Worth Beach, attending South Grade Elementary, Lake Worth Junior High, and Lake Worth High School. Not only am I a homeowner in District 4, I'm also a business owner in District 1, working in the building that my father and his father built in 1959. After years of not seeing any progress in my neighborhood, I discovered the Neighborhood Association, which connected me to a large community within this city, and that helped me guide me in the direction I needed to go to make my voice heard. This started my public service background, which consists of being the current president of my neighborhood association, Pineapple Beach, as well as the NAPC. I am currently on the Lake Worth Tourism Task Force Committee, the Great Taste Committee, and have been involved in many city events throughout the years. In the past, I've attended Palm Beach County REAP grants, collaborated with Bridges of Lake Worth and Healthier Lake Worth. I was lead in organizing fellow business owners in District 1 against former city leaders and stopped the city from devaluing our property and displacing our businesses for their personal gain. As your District 4 Commissioner, I would like to do the responsible thing and concentrate on our infrastructure with the remaining funds left over from the ARPA funds after we shore up our reserves, expand our solar fields, convert or replace our city trucks to natural gas, move forward with the Gulfstream Hotel, and once and for all, complete the beach complex as it should have been. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Morgan.
Hello. Thank you for hosting this great forum. It's a great and opportunity for me, and it's a great honor. I moved to Lake Worth Beach 5 years ago. When I first moved down here, I got a job on the island, making smoothies for the health-conscious residents living there. And but I always had a desire to do more, to do something with more meaning and more purpose. That desire led me to the doors of the Guatemala Maya Center, and in their crowded waiting rooms, I found my sense of purpose. I was able to talk and converse with thousands of residents in Lake Worth, helping connect them with county resources so that they could use those resources to better their lives and the lives of their families. We accomplished some meaningful things while I was working at the center. One of the things I'm very proud of is starting one of the first testing sites, COVID-19 testing sites on Lake Worth Beach. At the time, the mayor of Palm Beach County, Mayor Kerner, was saying that the migrant community was too afraid to get tested. Us working on the ground, we knew that that was not the case. Wasn't something related to immigration, but what we identified was a lack of understanding of how to approach the situation. What we did, first of all, is that we simply offered a testing site that started at 5 o'clock, when working people, got off of work and had the chance to go get tested. That first testing site had 600 people during a time where many testing sites couldn't break 100. Another thing that I'm very proud of and glad we got done was ensure our people that participating in the census was not only important to them, but the community at large. There was a lot of fear regarding the census, and at the end, we were able to encourage our people by producing material that was easy for them to digest and understand. And if you read in the Palm Beach Post, Lake Worth had one of the largest spikes in population, about 20%. And just imagine the type of funds that we will get in our city because of the type of approach. Overall, when I was working at the center, my director told me that I had one job, and I would ask him what that job was. But at the end of it, he said it was to listen, simply to listen. And I want to do that now for the residents in District 4, in all our city, and be able to serve them when I enter City Hall. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to have 5 questions, and if we have time, we'll have a little extra discussion, and then we'll have a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and have more questions later. So we're going to start with you, Daniel, and we're going to come all the way back up this way. And the first question is a 2-minute question, and it says, what neighborhood do you live in, and how long have you lived there?
I'm sorry.
It's got about 3 or 4 sentences.
Okay.
Why did you choose that area? And is there anything that you would like to see improved? How have you actively participated in your neighborhood association or other groups within the city?
Thank you. I live on South J Street and 4th Avenue, the downtown jewel. I moved to Lake Worth Beach 5 years ago, and I've been living in that same apartment since. I've been involved at large, you could say, with the city, talking to thousands of residents in Lake Worth and throughout Palm Beach County. When I moved down here, one of the things that really stood out to me was the sense of community. And that's something that I didn't have before living in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so I've been very eager to get to know my neighbors, listen to their stories, their backgrounds, and use my knowledge and talents to help them and to improve the general well-being of our city.
All right, thank you. Craig, and if anyone ever needs a question re-asked, I'll be happy to re-ask it.
Okay, thank you. I live in Pineapple Beach. How long have I lived there? My entire life. I literally live in the house that I was raised in. My parents also live down the street from me. always helped my neighbors with anything they've ever needed. I got involved in our Pineapple Beach Neighborhood Association, which I'm currently president of, and as far as outreach to other neighborhoods, I'm also the president of the NAPC, which is the governing body for all the neighborhood associations. I'm involved community-wise with the NAPC, with city events. We collaborate well on events. A lot of people don't even realize, without all the volunteers through the NAPC and the neighborhood associations, the events that would not happen in this city. Very proud to be a member, very proud to be the president. And that's about it. Thank you.
All right. Ronaldo?
All right. Well, currently I live South J and 6th Street. I'm literally like in the process of moving there pretty much as we speak. Previously, I lived in downtown Jewel on South L, close to 3rd. And you couldn't really have two extremes or two dichotomies between both blocks that I live on, that I've lived on recently. And, you know, being someone who grew up here and did all the things that I told was the right thing to do. You know, I'm the son of immigrants. I worked really hard to put myself through college, to make all the way to law school, earned that degree. And despite all that, I am personally affected by, some of the issues that is not, to be fair, is not limited to Lake Worth Beach, right? I've mentioned affordable housing. That is a top priority issue. And people in my situation are struggling. And there are many people throughout the community who are struggling. And on South 6, where I'm at right now, largely immigrant community, something I can relate to for sure. And I see, development decisions being made. I see policy decisions being changed, and they're not addressing to those communities. I think Daniel said it best, the best job is to listen. And I think listening to these communities is a good first step, but you really got to be able to take the next step, right? You got to be able to write policy. You got to have the education. You got to have the background and the ability to write policy, which will address these issues and resolve them for those communities. My career as a waterkeeper is basically entirely devoted to that, where I've addressed things from clean water protection to environmental racism for impoverished communities, around the Glades communities, and throughout our watershed in Palm Beach County.
Thank you. Our next question, we're going to start with... And our next question, we're going to start with Craig, go to Daniel, and then finalize it with Reynaldo. 2-minute question. What is your plan for our oceanfront beach complex and pool? And how do you think you can realize that goal? Thank you.
Well, the entire complex needs to be discussed, obviously, not just the pool, as some people like to do. The pool itself cannot open the way it is and be sustainable. The entire complex needs to be finished. The upstairs restaurants, I do have ideas that I would like to see happen that I believe could eventually get us from right now we're in the black, maybe about $350,000, $400,000 from the beach complex. Could generally probably get us out about to $1 million coming from that property. Very simple things to do. But the main thing we need to do is finish the upstairs restaurant, bring some income. There's also, plans around the pool, whether we keep it the same, which I don't believe we should, change it and make a whole new environment out of the pool, make it a destination people from all around want to go to. We want an atmosphere, relaxing atmosphere. We want children to play, families to come, but we also want people to come, maybe a tiki bar. We have such a prime property there between the intercoastal and the beach, the ocean. We should absolutely take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel?
Thank you. The issue of the beach complex and the pool is a difficult one. I know from knocking on doors that people want to see our beachfront succeed and possibly see a pool open. I am concerned about the material cost and the maintenance cost for the pool. I understand that the commission put out an invitation to negotiate, and I'm hoping that anybody who is inspired to do something at our beach complex comes back with something that we can all get behind. But I could only get behind something that keeps the values of the city, which is keeping it for the residents and centered around families. Thank you.
Thank you. Ronaldo?
I've worked a lot throughout Palm Beach County and especially around the Lake Worth Lagoon to protect particular properties, some of which are arguably the most valuable in this state, right? These are waterfront properties, they're highly desirable, and there's really good environment surrounding them. And the beach complex is probably a pinnacle example of that, in that the value that that property has is immense. And it's really shameful to see the upstairs, like Craig pointed out, the upstairs being used as essentially storage. I mean, this is like prime beachfront real estate that is just being wasted away right now as storage. And in terms of the pool behind it, because we do have to look at the entire complex, not just the pool, I think it's really important for people to understand that the pool, when we discuss we want the pool back, it's not necessarily in the same iteration that it existed before. There are a lot more innovative and creative uses of that pool, projects that we can bring on to make it, more inviting, make it more of a community asset, something that we can be proud of, and make it a destination for neighboring cities to come here and spend their money at our pool complex, but also our downtown area. And on top of looking at innovative changes to the pool or projects that are needed to bring people to it, I think another critical function or another critical step that needs to be taken is making a better connection through public transport. We have great tri-rail system. We do have a bus route, but I think we can do better. You know, something as simple as a trolley is not an expensive thing to undertake, and it would get people to our beaches. It would get people to our downtown area. In a few weeks, we have the street painting festival, and we all know how bad the parking is. Luckily, we can park in front of our houses. But for those who are visiting from neighboring cities, they don't have that luxury. So we need to make it easier for them to come to our town and enjoy it.
Thank you. All right, the next question, we're going to start with Craig, move on to Ronaldo, and finish with Daniel. This is a 3-minute question, and it's a big one, so enjoy this one.
I think yours should be starting with Ronaldo.
No, we move it around.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the order.
Yeah.
No, I move it around and move it around and move it around.
Oh,
So,
okay.
But thanks for keeping track of me, though. So, do you support Restoration St. Louis development plan for the Gulfstream Hotel, and do you also support the CRA's incentives for the project? Please explain your answers as well.
I 100% support Restoration St. Louis for the Gulfstream Hotel. The hotel's now been closed for 17 years. It's pretty embarrassing, honestly. It is a major asset to the city. We want to have more events in the city, but we need places for the people to stay. I 100%, I've seen their plans. Actually, I just talked to the Gills a couple weeks ago, and they're supposed to be coming out with the revised plans in a couple weeks here, so the city can, all the residents of the city can go ahead and see if they like the new concepts and designs. But 100%. As far as the CRA, I may not agree with some of the other projects the CRA does subsidize or grant funds to, but as far as the Gulfstream Hotel, that is a huge need in the city. Cities rely on tourism. We need a place for people to stay. It also is a good place for local events, charities to have events at, bring more business to the downtown area. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ronaldo?
As the project stands right now, I don't support it. And I don't support it because of the incentives that you mentioned. And also, I don't really see, working with developers for and against over the years, I know the talent that exists out there. I know the capability and innovation that some of these developers can do. And when I listen to the current project, when I hear things like, this hotel will not be financially beneficial to the developer unless they build the 100+ unit giant building next door to it. And I just don't believe that. There's plenty of developers out there that I know can build a Gulfstream hotel, can bring it back to life. And believe me, just like Craig, it is an embarrassment to see that thing closed for so many years. I have definitely many fond memories of going in there. I still remember, I want it to be brought back to that glory that it once had. And I think it can be done. And it can be done using a right developer who is innovative, who knows how to build something. I'm envisioning something that's green, that's environmentally friendly, but also a boutique hotel, right? You don't need massive hotels. We know this because this city included and many actively discuss limitations on things like Airbnb, ADUs, and so on and so forth. That's because people crave a smaller, more boutique experience. And I think that business model is out there, and we should be working hard to incentivize to get these developers to come in as quickly as possible and take on this project without barging through the door, right? The incentives that you mentioned, the $2.8 million handout, if you will, the the 10-year tax abatement, these are things that are not normally given to developers. And from what I have seen, there's a letter of intent. There's nothing enforceable that this city needs to follow through on this so-called agreement. And I think we can do so much better in enticing developers to come on and take on this project and to build us something really amazing without taking such a massive hit to the city's already limited budget. $2.8 million, that's a lot of social services. That's a lot of public transportation. That's a lot of grants for local businesses. That's a lot of covering of local businesses' impact fees, right? Smaller developers. That's who we need to encourage. And from what from my experience and from my not so long life, almost to 40 years, I can make this claim. Back in my day, we used to make developers fight over each other because we're giving them the opportunity to build something that's going to be economically successful for them. They should be incentivizing us into coming to make this decision and allow them to follow through on this opportunity.
Thank you. Daniel?
I want to say that I do support the Gulfstream program. Knocking on doors for my campaign and for and previous campaigns supporting some of the commissioners on the dais now, I know that the vast majority of residents support making sure the Gulfstream project succeeds. What I believe is that who we have right now serving on the commission and the commission before it were very invested in making sure that the Gulfstream had a chance to succeed. So I don't know what Mr. Diaz could bring that many commissioners before who were really invested in making sure that the project could get up, what he could offer instead of them. But I do support the Gulfstream. I believe that the city has done and offered a lot and has shown its commitment, and I would honor that commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz has chosen to use his rebuttal on this item, and that's 30 seconds? Is there a minute? What is that? I can't remember.
Maybe a minute for such a big question,
Yeah.
such a big
Well, no, they have I have rules. I just didn't see it here on my stuff. 1 minute. NAPC. Okay. You have 1 minute, sir.
Sure. I can say specifically what I bring to the table that previous commissioners haven't. That is, I have a really notable law degree from my mentor, who is the top Florida constitutional lawyer in Florida, who has a long-standing history of starting and working with organizations that address these exact types of issues. What I bring to the table is years of experience and education in writing policy and growth management laws that can encourage really good development, bring back the hotel to better than what it was before. And that is something that just we don't have now and we didn't have before. Thank you.
All right. We have everybody else wants to do their rebuttals as well on this one. So let's see. We started. Let's just go down. You next, Craig.
I want to refer back to something Mr. Diaz said about the Gulfstream versus Airbnb. There's a huge difference. Airbnb, we do not get a bed tax. The city does not get a revenue off that. They're very unregulated. Whereas the Gulfstream Hotel, return on investment would be that we do get a bed tax on that. Yes, we are giving them a tax abatement, but there actually is income coming in the meantime. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
My rebuttal is about to ask Mr. Diaz, does he not believe that the hardworking staff at the city have the credentials and are invested in making sure that what the residents desire, which is to see the Gulfstream succeed, do they not have the capacity to make that happen? I understand that he has a great background and an extensive education, but I believe that we have some hardworking people in the city who invested a lot of time and effort and their talents into finding ways to make this happen. And so I asked Mr. Diaz if he does not believe the staff have the ability to do that.
All right, thank you. Well, Mr. Diaz would speak out if he had the opportunity to speak out, I'm sure. But at this point in time, he has used his rebuttal and does not have the ability to answer the questions. And usually what we try to do is we try to answer the questions that we have. I understand your logical questioning, but we try not to make this a back and forth, as opposed to a hashing out of ideas. But you got your point across, I believe. All right. Something a little easier, maybe. All right, 2-minute question. And we'll start with Mr. Diaz, then Mr. Frost, then Mr. Morgan. What would you do to clean up or revitalize South Federal and Dixie Highway?
Again, back to the whole growth management mantra, there's a lot of planning theory that's out there, new planning theory that we know works in terms of how you design a community, how you build it. That's going to discourage crime, right? Let's be honest, we know what we're all talking about. And that, that kind of innovation is really needed, that kind of out-of-the-box thinking, because a lot of these are new planning theories, some of which are a little bit harder to accept, right? Not necessarily because they're not working. It's because I think a lot of people are afraid of change. There's a lot of social services that are proven to address crime issues. Things like needle exchanges, things like providing better mental health care, social services, so on and so forth, that will address the community's needs before they resort to an area of crime. I mean, I did just point out quite a few minutes ago that I live on South 6th on J Street. That's kind of like the hub of a lot of our crime issues. So I see it directly. I've grown up with it. I know exactly what the issues are that we're addressing. And the way that we address these issues is we give that community the opportunity to lift themselves up out of that blight, right? And what, like we say in many planning circles, if you design a community with blight, if you maintain that blight, then you're just going to attract more blight. So we got to do better, and we got to design a community that people can take pride in, and then we got to offer the services that's going to allow those members of those communities to lift themselves up out of things like their houseless situation, their drug addiction, and their life of crime.
Thank you very much. Mr. Frost.
So South Federal Highway, yes. South Dixie Highway, yes. But we also have North Dixie areas also. These properties, any property in Lake Worth is worth a fortune. It really is very valuable property. Why they haven't been developed, I have no idea. This is where I would like to see the CRA absolutely get involved. And if you want to start handing out incentives to build, that's exactly what I want to happen, especially on South Federal Highway, where there are a lot of empty lots. And as Mr. Diaz says, yes, blight, crime. From doing many crime walks, the areas are a lot cleaner than they were years ago. For collaboration with the PBSO, city officials, and neighborhood associations. They do listen. Certain things we need property owners to maintain their property, keep them a lot cleaner. But we also have to enforce our police force. It's just really that simple. There's a lot of crime. We have to keep our police force, keep them down there, and let them do their job. Once they start helping cleaning up the crime, hopefully we can get more developers come in not overdeveloped, but responsible development on South Dixie and South Federal.
Yeah, going around town, knocking on doors, talking to neighbors, I pitch them two things. My first one is a CIT, a crisis intervention team. This is a team of mental health professionals who would respond to nonviolent 911 calls. They would address the immediate situation and connect individuals with professional help and resources they could use to better their situation. In Eugene, Oregon, they implemented a CIT program. They took about 17% of the phone calls that were going into two different police departments. Here in Palm Beach County in 2020, the sheriff said that the budget had to continue to grow because of the 1.5 million calls that the department was getting. And so what I truly believe is the old tactic of bringing the police to address situations like prostitution, substance abuse, and homelessness hasn't given the community the results we want. And so I propose that we try a crisis intervention team to get away the stigma of criminalizing and punishing and start to help individuals so that we as a city and as a community can be better off for it.
Thank you. All right. It's our final question that we're going to have coming up. It's a 3-minute question, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Morgan, then Mr. Frost, then Mr. Diaz. 3 minutes. What is your plan for the L&M project in the East Downtown area? ? And what would you like to see there?
Well, I definitely want our city to continue to have its charm, to protect that identity and not bring in this huge development that year after year, when I talk to individuals, they tell me that that's not what they want to see. I'm not going to speculate and say what would be best for our downtown. I think the city's filled with creative individuals with different backgrounds who, if they had the opportunity to test out their ideas, possibly through business grants, they could probably make something happen there that we didn't even expect. And so whatever it is that our downtown is going to be, it's going to be what it has been, which is a small town feel with a lot of residential visits, no big development. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig?
L&M, I know there's a lot of controversy with this. I too would not like to see huge overdevelopment at any time. I want to see responsible, environmentally friendly development between L&M. Of course, we need new housing. I do not think we need any businesses added to the L&M project when we still have, for many years, vacant stores downtown in our city right here. Really, that's it. I don't want to see a 10-story building there, but I do want to see a responsible housing unit built there.
Yeah, it looks like that's something that we're all in agreement with. I mean, this is something, the L&M project I lived very close to. My office is pretty much right across the street from there. I see it all the time. And it is a prime property, right? This is a lot of opportunity in this property. There's a few buildings that must be protected. They're old, they're historic, they're absolutely beautiful. There's one that's on there that I would absolutely dream to own. It's the one behind a parking lot with like the vaulted ceiling old cottage. And, you know, as an environmentalist, as somebody who is into the future of growth management, we need to admit to ourselves that there needs to be, you know, some sort of higher density living if we're going to have less of an impact on this planet. But I do firmly believe that here in Lake Worth, we can do that without aggregation, without huge buildings, especially without 5/1 shoddy construction that we have seen in the past. These buildings are not made to last. They're eventually become a burden in a city, and we can do so much better. And I've already seen proposals from really talented architects and designers who have proposed ideas for the L&M project that I think should be seriously considered because they would help us have a little bit of higher density. It would bring, some people to the downtown area, and it would still protect the character of what our town is supposed to be about, which is small town living, being able to walk to all the places that we need to get to, low traffic and beautiful character and a really laid back place.
Thank you. John, do we have time for the?
We're at 45 minutes for the first half. You can squeeze one more in if you want.
Well, we have the, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with Craig, we're going to go to Daniel, and then we're going to finish with Ronaldo. So 1 minute, and this is your ability, from the first half of this forum, from the questions that you've just answered, is there anything that you would like to revisit before taking a break? Craig?
No, there's not.
All right. Daniel?
If I could, I would revisit addressing the crime on Dixie and Federal. I think that right now, do I have time to speak on it?
You have a minute.
Okay, thank you. I think right now we're in a situation where we have a lot of resources and opportunity, more specifically talking about ARPA money, to address some of the impact that COVID-19 had on our community. Working during COVID-19, connecting people, listening to what was going on. I know that there's a lot of work to do, and I would encourage the commission and people working in this to get out there and start talking to people to find out how we can best help and put that money to good use.
All right. Thank you. Candidates, we're going to take a 10-minute.
Ronaldo.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sir.
No problem, John. No problem. There's a couple things I want to address. The L&M project, right? That's a really good example. Mr. Morgan alluded to the fact that I don't agree with the staff's capability to undertake some of these projects, and that's actually pretty true. In fact, specifically with the L&M project, I see some serious concerns with what we call in growth management as wasting, and I see potential violations of the city's own code by staff and CRA and other issues that need to be addressed because they're really getting in the way of the value of that property and its ability to be redeveloped. And that really goes the same with the Gulfstream Hotel. I think, like I said before, massive incentives of millions of dollars of handouts, 10-year tax abatements. I don't own a home, but if you do you think it's possible to get 10 years of property tax abatement on your own house? Probably not likely. So these kinds of concierge service, bending over backwards for developers needs to stop.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of the District 4 candidate debate. And we are going to start, and we're going to start with Craig, and then Ronaldo, and then Daniel. And it's a 1-minute question. Would you continue the venerable tradition started by District 4 Commissioner Herman Robinson, coffee with the Commissioner, valued by many of our residents? If not, how accessible will you be to our residents?
I would absolutely continue with that. I thought it was an incredible idea when he started it. And as far as accessibility, where I work in the city, my shop, I'm literally less than 4 blocks from City Hall. I encourage anyone, if they want to know what I stand on, if they want to talk, come on by, let's chat. But yeah, I definitely love the program, and I would absolutely keep it.
I'm next, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'll probably do tea, but Herman is a great guy. I've spoken at his coffee with the Commissioner a couple times, largely on environmental issues usually. That's critical. That's pretty much my daily one-on-one already in my nonprofit, my public interest work, is I already kind of make myself available to the community at large all across the county and the state. Of course, definitely continuing that.
All right.
Well,
Daniel?
I'm a big fan of coffee, and I remember when I was first invited to go to coffee with the Commissioner, Commissioner Herman was kind enough to buy me a delicious piece of banana bread, and I thank him to this day for that. But unfortunately, I don't think I'd be able to keep that tradition of every Wednesday around that time. The work I do now, it demands that I be available at odd hours, working hours. But right now, you see my campaign material. It has my phone number, it has my email. I always respond to those, and I always make time to converse with anybody who wants to talk to me. I would look forward to that. Yes, thank you.
All right. So we're going to start this one with Reynaldo, and then with Craig, and then Daniel. This is a 2-minute question. How would you address parking issues downtown? Should we have a parking authority? What would that look like? Should we develop city parking lots and downtown parking should we develop city parking lots into downtown parking garages? 2 minutes.
I'm going to say no to parking garages. The future of planning theory and what is very well already accepted by the industry is a focus on what we call TOD development, transit-oriented development, because there's often, and I see it a lot, especially on community boards and social media, kind of the old thought is, well, there's a lot of cars, we need to find a place to put them. And that's only a small fragment of the conversation, honestly, because the other side of that conversation that needs to be discussed is we also need to get people out of cars, right? When we talk about the beach complex, I mentioned having something like a trolley or better public transport that's going to get people to these destinations. And that's part of a larger plan, if you will, to encourage people to not use their cars, right? I mean, there's other opportunities. I like to say sometimes the old-fashioned playthings are the most fun, and that is things like encouraging bicycle infrastructure, focusing on free and accessible public transport services. There's a lot of things we can do that's going to minimize the burden on our already existing parking infrastructure.
Thank you. Craig.
First thing we need to do is implement a residential parking permits. When I go up to St. Augustine every summer, I see that happening, especially around the downtown area. That helps out the residents. I can imagine living so close to downtown, like when we have events like street painting festival, things like that. It's got to be very frustrating not to be able to pull up in front of your own house. So we do need residential parking passes. Parking garages, reality, yes. I can't live in this world where we think we're just going to get rid of cars. Everyone's going to stop driving. That's not going to happen. We do need a parking structure. I actually was hoping there was going to be a parking structure right now where the Bohemian is being built, but obviously that can't happen. So yes, I do believe we need parking garage.
Thank you, Daniel.
I would not support parking garages in our downtown. I believe that a mobility plan for Lake Worth Beach includes promoting alternative ways to getting to the downtown, that maybe leaving your car at home. I believe that not just people in Lake Worth, but throughout the country are really taking the existential threat of climate change very seriously. And if we keep investing in the old solutions, we're never going to start to make time for the long-term plans, and which we really need if we're really going to address our concerns that the effect that we're having on our environment. So I would not move on any parking garages and encourage the city to find ways to promote alternative transportation.
All right, thank you. Our next question is going to be a 2-minute question. We'll start with Daniel, then Craig, then Reynaldo. And here it is. couple of sentences. Are there any policies that went into effect in the past 10 years that you would like to see revisited or overturned? If so, please explain.
I remember when the city got some community development grant money, and the decision of the commission was to invest that into more code enforcement. I think that is a very narrow-minded way of trying to address blight or subpar housing, substandard housing in the community. I think there are way better ways to invest this type of any grant that we get that is to improve the city. I would like to revisit that and decisions like that.
All right. Craig?
That's a tough question. I have to get back on that. The only thing I can say as far as nope, I'm sorry. I have to get back on that. I don't have an answer for that one.
All right.
That is quite the question to ask for 2 minutes to somebody who's a public interest lobbyist. Where do I begin? So, 10 years is really a good mark, because just over 10 years ago in 2011, the worst thing that happened to this state is, I believe, when Governor Scott was in office, one of the first things he did was he undid the Department of Community Affairs. This was an office that was put into place by Bob Graham when he was governor. It gave us some of the strongest growth management laws in the country. And then he completely undid that office to put in the Department of Economic Opportunity, which is something that we're still dealing with on a regular as a problem in terms of the lack of growth management and oversight. But that would require, obviously, a legislative change, a major change. But there's things that we can do as a local government to address and alleviate those concerns, right? And that comes down to, again, like I've mentioned before, growth management, our comp plan, our LDRs. This is the hardest area of law that can be practiced and understood. It's often the most difficult in any law school. I have loads of stories of when I went through that. Not many people want to study it, and the people who do study it very rarely choose to do the public interest side. So I, of course, am not, I'm not a litigation attorney. I'm really a policy guy. I like writing it. I like changing policy. And there's a lot of things that need to be undone. And one of which, and I think one of the first things I would want to work on is this limitation on rooftop solar, because it is not only bad for the environment, but it is also an encroachment on private property rights. And I think undoing that ban on rooftop solar would do a lot of good for our community and make people want to really live here.
Thank you. Our next one's going to be a 1 minute. We're going to start with Craig, then Daniel, and then Reynaldo. 1 minute question. What is your opinion on short-term vacation rentals, such as Airbnb? Should the city be taking any action?
Yes, as I mentioned before, the city gets no income from Airbnbs, and I do think they need to be regulated. Just so we have a little more control, it's a problem in a lot of the neighborhoods. The concept itself is fine if people come to visit our city and they respect everything, but we do get other people that come in and want to abuse the properties and abuse the surroundings. It's not fair to all the neighbors around them. So yes, I do think the city needs to be able to regulate them.
Thank you. Daniel?
I recognize the investment that a lot of these Airbnb owners have made into these properties that has improved the outward appearance of some of our neighborhoods. I personally would prefer to see families living in those homes, though, especially now while our country, our state, our county, our city is experiencing shortage in housing inventory. Airbnbs are an example of things that are challenging and are making it more difficult for people to be in homes. Unfortunately, the state has made it very difficult to regulate Airbnbs, but I would look forward to learning more on how we can approach this.
Thank you. Reynaldo?
Airbnbs are, they can be a good thing. They can be a source of income for families who happen to have a house that has an ADU, right, like many people in Lake Worth do. I do agree with Daniel. I'd rather see ADUs be made available as rentals for people who want to live here, because if you have too many Airbnbs, what you'll see is a rise in property value. And that, is good and for some people, but like Daniel mentioned, there's a housing shortage, there's an affordability issue, and Airbnbs can really hinder any progress made on that. It is difficult to regulate them. That's why it does take somebody with policy knowledge to get around Governor DeSantis and the state policy that limits that sort of thing. But it can be done, and there's a lot of opportunity there to help local families, local homeowners to cover the costs of their homes. And I agree with Craig, there needs to be regulation on Airbnbs, but I don't think we need to, wring out any money out of these local landowners.
Thank you. Okay, it's going to be another 1-minute question. We're going to start with Ronaldo, then Craig, and then Daniel. 1 minute. I'm not sure we can do this one in a minute either. Are you in favor of keeping PBSO? Do you see homelessness as an issue that PBSO should address?
Well, the first question, we need some level of PBSO, upwards of, between the mainland side and the beach side, we spend way more than half of our city budget on PBSO. And one of the other candidates mentioned earlier, their fix is, well, we have more calls, so we need more money to address these issues. And we keep doing that, and it doesn't seem to really be helping, right? There's some incremental help in terms of things are definitely significantly better from when I was a kid. But there's so much more we can do with that budget. A little known fact about me, I've actually been through police academy. Quite a few law enforcement people in my family. I'm very familiar with that industry. And I see the shortcomings, and I see the problems that industry has, and there are just better solutions, better services available out there to address things like our houseless community that PBSO and other law enforcement are not prepared to handle.
Thank you. Craig?
I definitely would not want to be an officer in today's environment. I give them all the respect they deserve. Let them do their job. They know what they're doing. Yes, it is more than half our budget, but a lot of people, whether you want to defund the police, whether you want to take away from but however you want to do it, those people will be the first one to call 911 when something happens. They're there for a reason. They're there to protect us, but they also need our help. They can't have eyes everywhere. The community does need to get involved. If there's things they see, they do need to report it to PBSO. They need report it to your neighborhood associations. Let your community know what's going on. The police cannot be everywhere all the time.
Thank you. Daniel?
I know that from knocking on doors, talking to people, that they have seen a huge change, particularly a decrease in crime since PBSO took over. The thing is, how much more are we going to expect from our sheriff's department? Should we not look into alternatives so that PBSO can do what it does best, which is to respond to violent crime? That's why my number one policy issue is crisis intervention teams. We have an opportunity to use government funding to pilot this program that will connect people with resources and help, because being homeless is not a crime.
All right. Thank you. All right. We have another 1-minute question that probably can't be answered in 1 minute by anybody. And we'll start with Daniel, then we'll go with Craig, and then to Ronaldo. Several sentences. What are your thoughts on Lake Worth Beach utilities? Do you see the electric utility as an asset or a liability? Should we just sell to FPL? 1 minute.
Starting with me. Yes. No, we should definitely not sell. It is an asset. When properly managed, I think it could be very good and profitable for the city. I know that there is some misconceptions. I had them too. When I started to be interested in running for commissioner, I started to listen more on the commission meetings and workshops, and there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to Lake Worth utilities. I think some of the issues arise from the fact that the water and the electric are on the same bill, but we were paying around the same rate. The thing is that Lake Worth, a lot of homeowners have older homes that aren't energy efficient, and I believe that we need to connect those homeowners with resources, grants to improve their energy efficiency, and I think they will start to see that the Lake Worth utilities as an asset in their city.
So
Yes, Craig.
Oh, great. Lake Worth Utilities is a huge asset to the city. We do get funding from that. We are so close with Lake Worth Utilities to being such a well-run system. I've been here my whole life. My utility bill in my same exact house is definitely cheaper than it was 30 years ago. There are issues with your home with insulation, wiring, stuff like that. Some people do have crazy bills, and it is because of the home itself, or you're just running, I don't know, you're running 60 degrees in your house, whatever you're doing. The utilities is very efficient. Years past, yes, we did have a lot of problems. We had a lot of power outages and stuff. It could be a sunny day, a drop of rain, and we get a power outage. Now we're going through hurricanes and not even getting power outages. Where my family out in Loxahatchee and stuff have been out for a week. We're doing very well with our utilities right now.
Thank you. Rinaldo.
yeah, there's not without its controversy, right, or its criticisms, but I think agree there. I think our utilities are doing fairly well. They can definitely use some help. And back to the rooftop solar thing. And do we want to sell to FPL? That's a resounding no from me. My career as a public interest, as a water keeper, I spend obviously a lot of time fighting against the fossil fuel industry, and FPL and its parent company NextEra pretty much embodies everything that's wrong with the fossil fuel industry, right? So for example, right now, about to go through session is Senate Bill 1024, which is known as the Renewable Energy Generation bill, and essentially what that law is going to do, it's going to discourage residents from putting rooftop solar on your properties, and it's going to leave them with a financial burden that's going to make it just not a sound decision. And we really need to stand up to that, and our local utilities are in a good position to do that.
Thank you. All right. Hey, a 2-minute question. We're going to start with Craig, then go to Rinaldo, then finish with Daniel on this one. Pop quiz. Using a letter grade between A and F, how would you grade the CRA? Do you support the CRA? And what projects in particular do you think they were either helpful or detrimental with? Craig.
I do support the CRA. I would give it right now maybe a B minus. The main issue I have with the CRA, obviously, and this is brought up constantly, is transparency. They kind of they're their own entity, and they kind of run the ball how they want it without any guidance from the city itself, from the community itself. I'm not a big fan of the Bohemian, which I know the CRA was involved in. I know a lot of people are. I don't think we should be building units like that on the railroad tracks. Like I said before, I think that was a perfect opportunity to build a parking garage that the city could have used downtown.
All right.
That's it.
Rinaldo.
CRA, I would give them a D minus. It's specifically the CRA, what I have seen. Like I said, I've been doing this quite some time, and what I see with CRAs, it's not limited to Lake Worth. This is a concept that exists all across the country, and unfortunately, what happens is it devolves into a concierge of sorts for developers, and it makes it easier for developers to take on the projects that they want, as opposed to the projects that the community needs. And I've seen this already with our current version of the CRA. The CRAs can exist for a noble purpose. They're meant to serve a noble purpose, but what we're seeing, the Bohemian is a great example, Craig. I look at that as a project of gentrification. You look at what the CRA does to the west side of the train tracks. I hear from the property owners and from the community out there on what is being done to them and the offers being made to them. And they are not having it, right? They do not want to displace our Central American, our immigrant community. They are not here to, the community does not want astronomical living expenses where we're getting priced out of our own hometowns. CRA can serve a noble purpose, although I think, when you have people involved, it's just going to be difficult to manage. there are opportunities, there are ways to serve that noble purpose through policy, through smart growth management laws, and through things like citizen oversight committees and other groups, and devote that energy, those services, to services for the community so that they can better their properties and not have to give up and not have to gentrify, and we're not going to lose the character that Lake Worth is known for.
All right, Daniel?
I would also give the CRA a D. I believe that they, as it stands now, they're an agency that is out of touch, misguided, because overall they're not accountable to the residents of Lake Worth Beach. The Bohemia property does threaten to raise the cost of living in that area. I believe examples like the new signs, Lake Worth Beach signs, show like a uncreative approach to fixing blight in our city. I believe what the commission did now to agree to vote, to give every commissioner a vote before appointing a CRA member is a great step forward. And I believe that moving even past that, I believe that the commission should share 5 seats of the CRA along with 2 residents, so that we have some accountability in that agency that has so much power and has such an impact in our city.
Okay, thank you. We have another 2-minute question. We're going to start with Craig, then Daniel, and then Reynaldo. It is 2 minutes, and it has one question. How would you encourage an increase in diversity in retail and entertainment in order to increase foot traffic along the downtown and Dixie corridors and attract out-of-town patrons? 2 minutes.
The biggest thing we need to do downtown is, first of all, we need to get back Lake Worth Road from the DOT, so we are under no restrictions, so we can have many more events in the city without having to juggle all the paperwork that Leisure Services does. We need to make downtown into more of an entertainment district, bring more life into downtown area. When you do that, people will come. You start having events. Look what happened to Delray. Not that we want a Delray, but they have events constantly, and then people come and they start filling up the stores. But of course, you got to watch yourself, because just like Delray announced, once they build up to a certain level, now all the residents are kicking back and want to tone it back down. Now they're claiming it's too loud. I definitely don't want to see that. But we need to turn downtown for what it is, into an entertainment district. Take our streets, take control, have our own say-so over what the events and stuff that we do downtown to bring more businesses and more interest to it.
Thank you. Daniel?
If we want to see diverse business in the downtown, we have to have people who are accountable to the residents, so that we can start to find out what the residents want. We won't be able to decide what our downtown looks like if we do not have people accountable on the CRA who possess extraordinary funds to make the desires and wishes and hopes of the city happen. So I insist on saying that the first step is to ensure that we have people accountable serving on the CRA board.
Reynaldo?
Well, we've talked about the beach complex. We've talked about better transportation, public transportation, to get people here as a destination. And the other part to that, which is, let's be real, that's what growth management is we need to encourage these storefronts to be filled with tenants and to have incredible business. We already have some really good examples in our downtown area of, sustainable long-term businesses that can exist without too much help. I don't think they're really getting much in the terms of handouts. I think that's something the CRA does do well on, and their grant program to do facades and help with signs and so on and so forth. That's a good start, but something that needs to be addressed, like Daniel mentioned, is accountability, right? And what I see, unfortunately, throughout Lake Worth Beach, not just our downtown area, is that there are a large number of properties that developers own and sit on, and they're sitting there on them vacant because their ROI on holding on to a property for 5 years is much larger than actually renting it out to a tenant. And what we have are empty storefronts in our downtown area, which is just unacceptable and embarrassing. And the way that we hold them accountable is we institute a vacancy tax, right? Laws are made to hold people accountable, and it's uncomfortable, and it's not something that people don't want to discuss because they know it's not popular, because developers have a lot of money and they're going to stand up to you if you encourage or discuss such a thing. But it's something that needs to happen. It's something that does happen across the country. The model for that law does exist, and me and a lot of my compatriots and my mentors, we're prepared to bring that policy to Lake Worth Beach so that we can have a vibrant Lake Worth downtown like it once was back in the day.
All right. Thank you. All right. We have another 2-minute question, and we'll start with you, Ronaldo, and we'll go to Craig and then into Daniel. 2-minute question. How would you advocate filling seats and using advisory boards in an effective way?
Advisory boards are amazing. I mean, again, back on the accountability horse, accountability can be done. We're really lucky. So growing up in Lake Worth, and let me tell you, I do this work all across the state and many issues across the country, and we're a really special place. I think a lot of people might take it for granted. We do have an involved community. We have a community of people who are very well educated on these issues. They're very knowledgeable on these issues. They know how to address them. Everyone has some really good ideas, and citizen oversight committees and bringing them, encouraging them to be a part of this planning of this community is such a great and easy opportunity. It's obvious to me that it needs to happen. Craig brought up the great example of Delray. We don't really want to be like a Delray Beach. They had a exponential amount of development in a very, very short amount of time. And then now they're kind of living with the decisions that they made, or they didn't exactly think it through. So, I think our residents know what this community wants at heart, and they absolutely 100% need to participate in planning decisions, and they need to give their input, and it's a no-brainer for me.
Thank you. Greg?
The way to fill the seats on the boards and stuff is very simple. We have a huge community called the NAPC, which the commission needs to work much closer with. The NAPC works well with the CRA, with other entities within the cities, leisure board, public works, everything. But for some reason, there seems to be still a disconnect between the commission and the NAPC. It is a huge resource. We're there. We can get the word out. If you want to talk about a group of volunteers that'll step up to do anything, that's the NAPC. It's that simple.
Thank you. Daniel?
I had the privilege of being appointed to the Charter Review Board, and I felt a sense of duty, and I was very grateful for being able to participate in this great process that our city was going through. I remember that in one of our discussions, we were talking about this exact thing, and one of the things that I landed on was that a lot of these directors and members of these boards should be residents of Lake Worth, and I believe that any commissioner or commission moving forward should always look for the input of the residents first. I think what we had prior to this current commission was individuals who really like to keep everything in-house and didn't really encourage resident participation. And so I think that's what we need to do. We need to be open with what's going on. We need to try our best to increase our outreach so that our residents are informed of what's going on, and invite them when they want to participate into roles and on boards and other important things in the city.
All right, thank you. So we got, how are we doing with time, NAPC?
We get a solid 15 minutes.
Okay. All right, we have our last question. And depending on how this goes, we might have another an open matter. I'm just giving you a heads up warning, and then you'll have your time for your closing statements. And I'm going to start with Daniel and then Craig and then Ronaldo on this one. 1 minute question. how can we bring more pride, diversity, and participation to the city of Lake Worth Beach? Daniel.
When I first moved down here, I was taken back by just how much people care about their neighborhoods, about their city. All the different activities and things that people engage in. I think there is an incredible amount of pride already in our town. What I believe, and diversity, and what I believe our opportunity is to combine the two, to reach out maybe beyond our immediate neighborhoods and get to know more people, more individuals living in our great town. There's such great diversity, and I feel very, very privileged to have been exposed and had the opportunity to sit down and talk to so many people. I think if we could bring people and communities together more, we would increase our pride and the overall just perception and feeling of our town.
Thank you. Greg?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, absolutely. How can we bring more pride, diversity, and participation to the city of Lake Worth Beach?
Okay. Pride, I don't know who's not proud of the city. I think we got plenty of pride. Diversity, I don't think of another city that is more diverse than Lake Worth Beach. Participation, and again, it's all about all the organizations working together. Like I said before, the NAPC, the commission, CRA, every other organization, Healthier Lake Worth, Bridges, any other organization in the city itself, the churches, it's bringing everyone together with a common goal, and that's to bring everyone into the city. We have marketing going on. It's just communication, basically, is what it is. Get everybody together. More communication, the more participation you're going to have.
All right. Thank you. And Ronaldo?
Yeah, I mean, I think across the board we agree this is a really diverse place, so we really need to put an effort to protect the diversity that's here, right? I myself, Central American heritage, I was born here, but my mom is from a tiny country called El Salvador, and Lake Worth actually has a pretty substantial number of Salvadorans in our town, which, you know, you have to understand this is a country that's barely the size of New Jersey. So, you know, whenever there's a community, that's something to be embraced and proud of. We have some phenomenal businesses, especially west side of the tracks, right? You know, many restaurants, many different cuisines represented. I myself, you know, went to kindergarten at Our Savior Lutheran, and I think about how many Finnish friends I had back then. It's just, this is such a unique place, and we really need to work hard to protect what's already here. And then to bring in even more, there's a lot of interagency things that we can do working with, you know, other groups, other networks to make sure that other communities, you know, I know we have a good community of Pakistanis in Lake Worth, and help them bolster their voice.
Thank you. All right. So like we had in the first half, if you had some question from the second half of questions that you would like to embellish your remarks or however you like to speak in addition on those items, you have 1 minute to do so. We're going to start with Craig, then Ronaldo, and then Daniel.
I am good.
Okay.
Going back to pride and diversity, that's what inspired me to run for commissioner. I think we are in such a unique position here in Lake Worth, and sometimes we don't even realize that even issues that we think are beyond our city, our county, our state, you know, national, international issues ripple here in this city, and we have a real chance to lead in this front by embracing the diversity and reaching out. There's individuals who've had to leave their homes, been uprooted, have found themselves in Lake Worth. Possibly they still don't feel like they have a home, although they're living here, raising children here, kids are going to school here. And I think if we reached out to them, embraced, celebrated, we'd be doing something that would be recognized on the world stage. Is that we have something really great and spectacular here in the city.
Thank you. Ronaldo?
Protecting the community that's here, it's so critical. And when you read the ACFR, the financial report from 2020, In the first few pages, it talks about, it basically admits that their taxable income or the taxable value of Lake Worth Beach reached its peak in 2007, and we have yet to get to there. But then it also kind of alludes that in order to get to that taxable value peak, we need development and we need substantial amounts of it. And that's just not true. The value is in the community that exists, the diversity that's here, the diversity of businesses that are already here, and how can we bring more of that flavor, if you will, to Lake Worth Beach, because that's what's going to bring people here. Our taxable value is almost there. In 2007, it was 2.9 million. We're at about a little over 2.1 right now. And I do think that the way to get to that value is not through gentrification and displacement of our communities. It's through creative planning and smart growth management.
Okay, thank you. All right. It's time for closing remarks. And they're 3 minutes each. And I'm just going to do it in the opposite that we did our opening remarks. So we'll start with Daniel, then Craig, and then Ronaldo.
Well, I just want to say that it's been an honor to stand before the crowd here gathered today and to answer questions that people throughout our city have. I get a real sense of joy when I, knock on somebody's door, they open it up and they stop to whatever they're doing to just have a chat with me. It reminds me of the time when I sat down at our local nonprofit over here on G Street and talked to individuals over there. What I want to do is bring a new perspective and approach, and to really build community by connecting individuals and bringing insight. When I was working social services at the Guatemala Maya Center, we were forced to be creative. We were working with a community that didn't subscribe to the same media outlets. They didn't digest information the same way. The resources weren't available there. And so it took a lot of time and effort to really try to address and overcome some of the obstacles that were facing this particular community. I was able to do that working hand in hand alongside so many people who really care about this town, who are invested in this town, who bring their expertise and knowledge to finding community solutions to community problems. And that's what I want to do for my neighbors, my constituents in District 4. I want to represent them, I want to hear them, and I want to work with the other commissioners and other districts and other neighborhoods to find solutions to some of the issues that we face as a city, as a community, and just help realize the potential that we have here in Lake Worth Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig?
So I'm very glad to be part of this community my whole life, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to possibly represent the community. Some things that are going to be coming up, surprised they actually weren't some of the questions. Charter amendments on the ballots, just so you know how I feel about them. We got term limits coming up. I don't believe we should have term limits. I think it should be left up to the voter. And then another one is, should the candidate be able to concede any runoff? I do believe that's a no-brainer. Yes, I do believe they should be able to concede. Single district voting, I do not believe in single district voting. I believe when you're elected, yes, you have the title of a district commissioner, but you do represent the whole city, so I think the whole city should vote for you. The fourth one, commission needs to fill a vacancy of a commissioner no later than 24 hours before qualifying begins. I do believe in that. We need to finish the beach complex once and for all. Finish the upstairs, get some more income coming in. Right now, obviously, there's an ITN out for the pool, which I think is short-sighted. It should have been for the entire complex. So be interesting to see what that comes back with. We need to shore up our infrastructure, fix the flooding issues, complete the sidewalks, expand our solar fields. We have 67 acres sitting out there. with approximately less than 10% of the solar panels on that property. We need to absolutely fill it. We need to take possession of Lake Worth Road from DOT so we can be more flexible with our events, bring some life to our downtown, and make it into an entertainment district. We do need more responsible growth, very responsible growth on Dixie and Federal Highway. There are a lot of vacant properties like we discussed before. They are very valuable. It would be a huge asset if we can build more homes. Yes, we do have a housing issue. We have the property to build it. We need to run the city like a business. Why? It is a business, and we need to remember that. A lot of discussions I hear up on the dais really make me uncomfortable when they start talking about spending money on little pet projects and stuff, and they realize they are responsible for the voters, for the residents, for the taxpayers of this city. When deciding on who to vote for and represent your community, remember you want someone that is and has been a part of this community, is very involved in this community. You need someone that's very accessible. Like I said before, I live, I work here. My work is less than 4 blocks from City Hall. Many of the people here right now have been by my shop. You can stop by anytime, let's chat. Thank you very much. Craig Frost, Commissioner, District 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Reynaldo?
I have devoted my life to serving community, right? I have, at great expense, both financially and personally, have chosen to start my own 501c3 from scratch so that I could represent and address the Lake Worth Lagoon and its watershed, namely the communities who are affected by a number of issues. It's definitely hasn't been easy, but my greatest joy, my greatest pride, if I have any pride in anything, and ego, I think I'm allowed to have a little bit of ego, is that I started a really successful 501c3 that is nationally known for some of the work that I've done to represent our communities, to fight and stand against things like environmental racism and harmful development. These are things that are on my track record I'm very proud of, and these are things that I can bring to Lake Worth Beach as a commissioner. Working with our neighboring cities, town of Palm Beach, one of our, obviously very prominent neighbors. I have a really close relationship with the council members of that town. We've worked together on many things. They seek me out for input, for advice on their policy. I'm ready to do that for Lake Worth Beach. I am more prepared. I've never been more ready to serve as an obligation to my own hometown and do this work so that my hometown can be made into something that we're all going to be proud of, and it's going to be financially successful, and it's going to be something that you're going to see go viral on social media in the near future that, hey, this town gets growth management. This town gets what needs to be done to bring dollars to the town without affecting the community that's already there and without hurting anyone. And I truly believe that can be done, but it's not an easy fight, and it really does take a substantial amount of education and experience, and perhaps more importantly, the ability of interagency communicating, of partnering with groups of all across the country that can bring that kind of talent to this town to help us bring us to our full potential. And I clearly have the history of that. I sit on a board of many very notable Florida environmental groups. I've worked with many legislators. I'm endorsed by Ana Escamani, who's easily, in my opinion, our top legislator in Florida. She is, true progressive. She represents her community. She stands up and fights for Floridians, not for out-of-town big money developers, not for big businesses that want to come in here and wring us of all our cash. We need someone who's going to represent the community, and I have the track record to do that. And eso incluye nuestra comunidad Latino, my people, we need it. So I'm ready.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I'd like to applaud you. You have made my job incredibly easy tonight, and I thank you greatly for that. And you showed great civility towards each other, which is a quality that all our leaders need, and at least in my opinion. And for that, I think you all should be able to hold your heads very high tonight on how you've handled yourselves and how you've responded to the questions here. So I've been asked, have I been asked? make sure everyone votes on March 8th?
Absolutely.
Yes, so I've been asked to say, I hope everyone comes and votes on March 8th, and my participation in this matter has been completed.
Huge thank yous to our moderator, John Paxman. Hardest working people in showbiz right here on the first row, keeping
Yep.
time, the timekeepers. Thank you, candidates. Thank you so much. Thank you for the volunteers and the committees and the neighbors that are behind making this happen. I'm John Faust. I am the past president of the presidents. Have a great night. Thank you.